I'm off to do some very important Prime Minister stuff. She didn't want me to speak at this DVD rally, but I said, "Oi, I'm the bloody Prime Minister!"
Well, where do you start? Laura? Look.
Exactly. I'll leave that up to you, sweetie.
Okay. Look, I want to go back to the basics, right? I just want to get things. I sometimes have to say things a few times so that people are nice and clear. Okay. I want to talk about the whole thing, belligerent occupation. The two words, belligerent occupation, right? Now, the whole reason for this strike, the whole foundation of this strike is two things, right? To remove a belligerent occupation and to ensure the safety of our children, particularly those children that are being abducted by police, child protection services, courts, and pedophile family members and others. You got me? All of those kids. They're the two foundation reasons of this strike and what motivated me to move this strike on the 9th of February 2024. At that time, just before, there was a lot of footage around of young kids getting snatched, cops and other law enforcement pushing their way into properties and taking kids, all this sort of stuff. Now, belligerent occupation. Okay. Now, do we or don't we have a belligerent occupation? Yes or no? I want to get that absolutely clear. Okay. Now, I've uploaded and I've published from information and that from Wayne Glue, from Rod Cullerton, from Dick Yardley, from Romley Stewart, right? All of these people that everybody knows. And although they are saying it in different ways, they're all saying the same thing, and that is we have a belligerent occupation. So that's number one. That's number one. Now, number two, what does a belligerent occupation, in our case here in Australia, what does it look like? What does it look like, right? Now, I say, I'm not giving you the whole, intimate picture, but I'm just giving you a feel for it, right? It is, right, all of our parliaments, right, all of our courts, all of our law enforcement, right, which is the police and the prosecutions and so on. It's all of these local councils. It's things like the taxation office, right? It's also these banks and bankers, the Federal Reserve, right? Okay, it's not ours. You have United Nations contracts that undermine our sovereignty, and you have the World Health Organization contracts and covenants, right, that undermine our sovereignty. So that just gives you a bit of an idea, right, of what the occupancy looks like, what shape it is, right? Now, Australians, you and me, right, okay, we cannot, it is just an impossibility to partially remove, right, this belligerent occupation. It can't be done, i.e., you can't remove the taxation office, right, but still allow, all the law enforcement and all of the courts to continue to administer fake justice, right? So you can't do that. You have to remove all of it, okay? So I want to make that point nice and clear. We don't have any choice. If we want to get our country back under our care and control here, our custody, and to remove the belligerent occupation, then all of it must go. All of it. Not this or that, but all of it. And what does that all of it mean? Well, it's parliaments, it's local councils, it's courts, it's law enforcement, it's taxation office, because all of it, according to the entire body of evidence that has been published by some of the best researching people, I think, in our family, broader family, that I've just aforementioned, they say it's belligerent, right? They say it's illegal. They say it's all fake. They say there's no common seal. They say all sorts of things, right? And they prove it with evidence, okay? So I want to get that nice and clear, right? Because it's important when I talk about the fracture line that exists here in the Australian freedom movement, right, and what it represents. It's important to know, right, you know, what are we arguing? All right, strike action number 2, Laura. Announced on the Gold Coast at a big, well-attended My Place meeting last week that I attended. I announced strike action number 2 and followed that up with an interview with Ricardo Bossi on the Green Room last week. We have strike action number 2, which is an occupational health and safety strike action. And it's a strike action against both, again, local councils. We want to keep the pressure right on local councils, but also, in some other instances, water authorities. And it's a strike action, an occupational health and safety strike action against the fluoridation of our drinking and potable water. Okay, now that's now been launched and it is now in play, and it's being rolled out and well supported. Okay, well, there's a lot happening. What the strike? This is a couple of things. The strike has really exposed, right, a few things, but not just that. At the very same time, the strike was called and rolled out, and subsequently, you know, unearthed some stuff. There's been a public presence felt and now mobilised by people, social media influencers inside of the freedom movement. So there's been this mobilisation out there, right? Now, for me, and knowing the players and knowing systems, and having a lot of sort of local knowledge, right? What it looks like to me, right, is that what's happened is that 2 years ago from Canberra, and really this is where the national strike motion should have been discussed and moved there. That's where it should have been done, but that was torpedoed, right? So between 2 years ago and now, the Freemasons and other power bases, right? The Freemasons and other power bases, right? Zionism, I'm talking about political Zionism. I'm also talking about, the bankers, Khazarian, Jews, these power bases, they have regrouped, right? Canberra wrong-footed them and shocked them. And they have been working overtime to regroup. And they have now done that. They've now regrouped. They've publicly launched this ACA coalition that is made up of lots of alleged organisations. So I've got to admit, what it looks like to me, the structure, I'm talking about the engineering of this ACA, it looks no different than a George Soros Open Society Foundation with a whole suite of NGOs, non-government organisations out in front that he funds and he organises. And they appear to be organisations with lots of people, because the claim with the ACA that I believe is they're saying we have we represent 1 million people. That's the claim that they're putting out there. And I'm sort of saying, well, come on, how many or how many people do they truly represent? I don't think it's that. So that's the first thing. They've regrouped. Now, the second thing is, they are presenting themselves, because we now have another card in that game, which is Clive Palmer, and he's hosting with Tucker Carlson a Freedom Conference tour, right? None of this is by accident, and it's all coordinated, in my opinion, right? My opinion, right? So, you are now starting to see a public, campaign, an awareness campaign. They're coming out, the Freemasons are coming out, and they have all of their real estate, deals. You've got to remember, all of this is managed along on the system, what they call factions, okay? I come from a world in the left, unions and Communist Party, Labour Party and Parliament, all that, and it's all run on factions. That's how they run all of it. They break it up and they have these factional deals. Now, all of that management style I see over here in the freedom movement. Not here, not there, but all of it. The entire freedom movement is being managed and handled by way of factions. This faction, that faction, and they move in play. Okay, so I see these systems. Now, this faction, this Freemasonic faction, by the looks of it to me, right, is presenting themselves as the solution, right? And in order to get away with that, one, they are attempting to paint in primarily Ricardo Bossi, but by implication all of us as crazy people. That's the first thing. So they're saying that Ricardo and Australia One are crazy, right? That's the first thing. And secondly, by implication, all of us. And the reasons given is that if you mention child trafficking, if you mention institutional pedophilia, if you mention organ harvesting of children, if you mention adrenochrome, if you mention institutional abuse or any of this sort of stuff, blackmail, any of this, then Craig Kelly from One Nation and former UAW, all that sort of stuff, then the label is going to be that you are crazy. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, now you've got to understand, if you go back and read the protocols of the elders of Zion, right, that is a Zionist tactic. So anyone doing this stuff, calling you crazy and all that, is a spear chucker, right, a spear chucker for the Zionist, right, because it's a Zionist systems tactic to discredit your enemies. Okay, so you need to understand this. As an old communist, I look at all these language, I look at tactics, and look, where are they coming from, right? Because these are not by accident. None of it's by accident. So that's the second fracture line. The first one is going to be over belligerent occupancy. Yes or no? Do we or don't we? Because, One Nation and Clyde Palmer and all them, they're saying no. They're saying that we have a proper government system that's broken. That's what they're saying. And they're saying that they can fix it. They're saying that they can fix this, government. That's what they're saying. We can fix it. We can hold it accountable as long as you go and resubmit back to it. And as the lawful government. When all of us know it has no validity. None of it. Not just the government, the courts, the cops, the councils, the tax, and all the rest of it as well. None of it has any validity. So that's the fracture line. That's the fracture line. They are saying they're going to fix this absolute rotten, corrupt, murderous belligerent occupation up. They're saying they're going to fix it up and hold it accountable. And I'm saying you're a liar. You're a liar. A, you don't want to, and you're giving us lip service, and B, even if you wanted to, you couldn't. You've had 200 years to fix this shit. 200 years. You ain't fixing anything. It's all has to be swept aside, and it's all got to go, and it's all got to be rebuilt by a nation of free and educated people. Okay, we've got to learn a lot of lessons out of this. We've got to do all of that, but we need to rebuild this nation. Over. You see, I'm an old professional, Laura. What I think of people doesn't matter squiddly dot to me, nothing. I want to ascertain what is the differences. What am I fighting over? What's the ground, right? So I want to get that clear in my mind, you know, because I'm not fighting over personalities, and I'm not fighting, you know, any of this sort of nonsense. I want to get to the real hard meat and potatoes, right? And so the first thing is, we do have a belligerent occupancy. We do have a belligerent occupancy without question, without question. And that belligerent occupancy is only getting worse every week. If it's not adults, men, partially dressed in provocative women's clothing, reading children's stories in our libraries, it's digital ID. If it's not digital ID, it's going to be something else, right? Okay. Now the criticism that I have inside of the freedom movement, this is my criticism, is that they all want to address or argue or protest against this part or that part or this action or that action, but they never want to admit, one, that we have a belligerent occupation, and two, that unless you remove that belligerent occupation, then nothing's going to change. Nothing, right? They're going to continue, right, to roll out these anti-Australian, measures, and they're not going to stop, right? So that's my criticism. Is why are we exiting the WHO? Why are we? I mean, I support the exiting of the WHO. I do. I support that, right? But why are we mobilising to exit the WHO when we should be mobilising to exit the belligerent occupation, which would fix the WHO, fix all of this digital ID and everything else, a whole lot of it. So you've got to ask yourself the question, right? Why are we being, this selective and targeted in this way? And why are we spending energy from the freedom movement in this way, when clearly a national strike against the belligerent occupation is by far and away the most superior strategy? And it's a strategy that is being well managed and well rolled out and very targeted. Okay, so I put this up for people to consider. If we're going to get rid of this belligerent occupation, the whole lot of it has to go. All of it, all of the institutions that uphold and are central to this belligerent occupation must go. And that includes these fake courts, these fake taxation officers, and just as importantly, front and centre, these fake child protection officers, these fraudulent, predatorial, fake child protection officers, okay? Them too, out, all of them, out, okay? Okay. Now, there's another tentacle to this, okay? We have us, then we're on top of us, we have a belligerent occupation. Again, who are they? Parliaments, courts, cops, law courts, councils, tax, okay. Then out to one side, we have another group of Australians, right? And these Australians are profiteers. They are opportunists, and they do very well out of this belligerent occupation. And the example that I've used in a recent interview, just simple, is that the institutions of this belligerent occupation, i.e. its parliaments and defence departments, they start the wars. They start them. But it's the profiteers who build factories and make money from soldiers' uniforms and soldiers' boots and all this sort of stuff. They profit from these wars and they love it. So these profiteers, these privateers, right, billionaires, very wealthy, right, these people, they have no, you know, they are fully on board and supportive of this belligerent occupation, right? That's just a fact. And yet somehow these very same people, their influencers, are sitting at the freedom table here in Australia. They're sitting with us. They're eating. They're sitting at our table, eating from our food. You know, and I asked the question: why are they sitting at our table? Their interests are not our interests at all. They are opposite. That's the first thing. And the second thing is who's invited them? Who has invited them? You know. So, you know, we've got some real, you know, we've got some real internals within the freedom movement that need some serious questions. Listen, Laura, for me, I don't care about the personalities. That's not an issue. I really just want to get to the bottom of things. Yeah, if I'm going to have a fight, if I'm going to have an argument, if I'm going to pick up and strike and all that, then I need to know what the hell. I need to know what the hell am I fighting about? What am I fighting over? I try to get it clear. If I've got a disagreement with other people in the freedom movement, it's not because of their permed hair, right? It's not because of the way they look. I don't care about that. You know, I mean, I want to get to the real issues. And I'm saying right here and now, ladies and gentlemen, to the best of all of my decades and decades of experience in dealing with factions and all of this, you know, skullduggery that you're seeing now, what I'm saying to you is pretty close to the mark. It's a pretty accurate assessment of what you're dealing with, right? You know, they are trying to paint us mad, crazy, and I've told you the reasons why. They do not support this strike whatsoever, because they will never admit to that we have a belligerent occupation. They will continue to virtue signal. They will continue to virtue signal, whether it's over digital ID or anything else out there, and it's going to be non-stop. And that's a Fabian tactic. That's to drain your funds, drain your energy, drain your fight. That's a Fabian war tactic, that one, a systems tactic. Freemasons are saying we got to start rebuilding now and everyone wants to rebuild and all that. No. Everyone wants accountability and justice first, because we can't move on. I can't rebuild anything. I can't move on until every single one of those people who participated and instigated this mass murder of my countrymen, right, are fully held accountable and are dealt with. And there's going to be no rebuilding. There can't be any rebuilding. There can't be any closure until all of the justice is straightened out first. And they are protecting it. These Freemasons in this freedom movement are protecting the system from that. Now, I'm sure they're going to throw us, you know, some scraps. I'm sure they're going to throw us some of their own, you know, to satisfy our anger, right? But they have no intentions and have no capabilities on straightening any of this out. It's all got to be swept aside.
They're afraid of you noticing what's going on and speaking your mind and standing up, and you're sitting there thinking that you don't matter. Well, if you don't matter, then why are they spending trillions of dollars on trying to keep you quiet? Our voices matter. Our actions matter. How we live matters. And if we don't realize that we're falling into this trap,
we need to come together and do one thing: stop participating. And when we do that, the game is over. When we literally say Monday morning, we're not going to go to work. Imagine if 30 million people didn't go to work Monday. Imagine if 30 million people didn't buy gas on Monday. Imagine if 30 million people went to the bank on Monday and said, I want to withdraw all my money. They can't even give it to all 30 million because only 15% of the cash is available on hand at any given time. The rest is fake zeros and ones. That would collapse the banking system in one day. You see the power in that? You have the power. Well, we all have the power. But what's keeping us back from doing this? Fear. Oh my God, if I don't go to work, I'm going to get fired. And if they don't participate in it, and I'm the only one that doesn't show up for work, I'm going to lose out, and you're not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm not going to be able to make my car payment, and so forth and so on. You see the trap they have us in? They have us in this system where we're afraid to work together. We're afraid to be like, man, we're brothers. We should be, link up. Let's do this together. So that's where we got to get to, guys. We got to get to the point where we're literally all on the same accord. And that's going to happen. We've got to get to that point.
If we want to get our country back under our care and control here, our custody, and to remove the belligerent occupation, then all of it must go. All of it. Not this or that, but all of it. And what does that all of it mean? Well, it's parliaments, it's local councils, it's courts, it's law enforcement, it's taxation office, because all of it, according to the entire body of evidence that has been published by some of the best researching people, I think, in our family, broader family, that I've just aforementioned, they say it's belligerent, right? They say it's illegal. They say it's all fake. They say there's no common seal. They say all sorts of things, right? And they prove it.
G'day Aussies. Look, we know courage is as rare as rock and horse shit. But find something within yourself to get on and sign up for the National Strike. www.nationalstrikeaustralia.org. Let's end this belligerent occupation and take our country back and give our children a future that we want, not what they want.